In today's video, Karoline Leavitt was on fire. Donald Trump absolutely annihilates a reporter. Chuck Schumer issues a warning to Donald Trump. Eric Swalwell panics when asked about his Chinese spy girlfriend. Alina Habba destroys the fake news media. Scott Jennings schools a panel of CNN low-IQ Democrats. Hakeem Jeffries and Rachel Maddow go crazy comparing fighting Trump to the Civil War. J.B. Pritzker compares Trump to Hitler. And Cenk makes up his own conspiracies in his head. Let's get it. Our girl Karoline Leavitt was on fire today talking about the Dan Bongino hire, the federal workers panicking about a small email they have to answer that Elon Musk sent, and one of the best things, in my opinion, was when she announced that the WHCA no longer controls which media organizations are allowed in the briefings. You hear a big sigh from the mainstream media hacks when she says this. This is terrific. But first, let's go to the new face of the Democratic Party, Jasmine Croquet. Imagine Jasmine Croquet OC as a presidential ticket. Sign me up for that. The content alone would be worth it because there's no way they would win. But imagine the fun we would have with that.
If you could speak directly to Elon Musk, what would you say?
Fuck off.
That's it.
As you all know, for decades, a group of DC-based journalists, the White House Correspondents Association, has long dictated which journalists get to ask questions of the President of the United States in these most intimate spaces. Not anymore. I am proud to announce that we are going to give the power back to the people who read your papers, who watch your television shows, and who listen to your radio stations. Moving forward, the White House press pool will be determined by the White House press team. Legacy outlets who have participated in the press pool for decades will still be allowed to join. Fear not, but we will also be offering the privilege to well-deserving outlets who have never been allowed to share in this awesome responsibility. Just like we added a new media seat in this briefing room, legacy media outlets who have been here for years will still participate in the pool, but new voices are going to be welcomed in as well. As part of these changes, we will continue the rotation amongst the 5 major television networks to ensure the President's remarks are heard far and wide around this world. We will add additional streaming services which reach different audiences than traditional cable and broadcast. This is the ever-changing landscape of the media in the United States today. We will continue to rotate a print pooler who has the great responsibility of quickly transcribing the President's remarks and disseminating them to the rest of the world. And we will add outlets to the print pool rotation who have long been denied the privilege to partake in this experience, but are committed to covering this White House beat. We will continue to rotate a radio pooler and add other radio hosts who have been denied access, especially local radio hosts who serve as the heartbeat of our country. And we will add additional outlets and reporters who are well suited to cover the news of the day and ask substantive questions of the President of the United States, depending on the news he is making on that given day. When he talks about the past corruption at the FBI, when he talks about his experience serving for the United States Secret Service, this is a man who loves his country and who has honorably served our country in ways that many people have not. He understands the depth of the corruption at these institutions, which the American people re-elected President Trump to shake up. And I think it's quite despicable to see many networks in this room who have had chyrons on their television screens labeling Mr. Bongino as a far-right podcaster. He is not. He is a former law enforcement agent. He is a former Secret Service agent who put his life on the line to protect this country, and that is why the President of the United States has entrusted him for this important role. He's also an outsider to this Washington swamp, and we often see that when outsiders are appointed to such coveted positions, a lot of people in this city get very, very nervous, and they should be, because Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Attorney General Bondi are focused on rooting out the corruption at these agencies and ending the weaponization of government once and for all. Again, the agency heads will determine the best practices for their employees at their specific agencies. Again, this was an idea that Elon come up with. Doge worked with OPM to actually implement the idea, and the secretaries are responsible for their specific workforce. And this is true of the hirings and the firings that have taken place. And we advise federal workers, unless your agency has has dictated you not to respond to this email. In fact, I can announce that we've had more than 1 million workers who have chosen to participate in this very simple task of, again, sending 5 bullet points to your direct supervisor or manager, CCing OPM. I actually participated in myself. It took me about a minute and a half to think of 5 things I did last week. I do 5 things in about 10 minutes, and all federal workers should be working at the same pace that President Trump is working and moving. We have a country to save, and we want this federal government to be responsive to the needs of the American people who re-elected this president to have historic, massive reform, and that's what the intention of this idea is.
Can you clarify one thing, though? Because Elon Musk also said that a reason that they wanted this 5 things email was just to see if people are actually alive. Citing that there are some federal workers who might not even be alive. So meantime, NBC is reporting that these responses are going to go into an AI generator to evaluate whether these jobs are necessary. So is it just to see if people are actually working, or is it an effort to maybe cut some of those jobs?
I have not seen that NBC News report, and I haven't heard that from Doge or from Elon himself. Again, this is to ensure that federal workers are not ripping off American taxpayers, that they are showing up to the office, and that they are doing their jobs. That's what the American people expect, and it's a very simple task to complete. I did it myself, and I was more than happy to do it because I'm very grateful that I am serving the American people on the American taxpayers' dime.
Do you think Doge should hire a spokesperson just so that Elon Musk doesn't put out tweets that then confuse federal workers?
Are my press briefings not good enough for you, Jackie? John.
What an upgrade Karoline is from the hack that we had before that. Now, the next clips you're going to watch, one of Benny Johnson's show. He just had Anna Paulina Luna on there, and she's talking about the declassification of the JFK files, which should be released sometime this week, I think. She's also been a big advocate for the Epstein files being released ASAP, which I agree with. After that, we have a clip of J.D. Pritzker comparing Trump to Hitler, and of course, Jake Tapper platforms this nonsense. Also, we have Lisa Murkowski, a senator, calling the email that Elon Musk sent to the government workers an intimidation. Look, they want to know that these people are not double dipping. They're not just sitting downstairs in their basement eating Cheetos, playing video games, and doing another job at the same time. Seems only fair. And then we have Chuck Schumer pretty much threatening Donald Trump. Listen to this clip and then wonder how the left agrees with this, but yet calls Donald Trump a fascist. Let's get it.
Pretty alarming series of news bombshells over the last 24 hours. I guess let's begin with the FBI presumably destroying evidence. Can you talk us through, if that is in fact happening, Schellenberger backed up our reporting yesterday, what would be the penalties for that? Have you been in contact with Kash Patel or anybody in the FBI? It seems to be something that would immediately halt your investigation into classified evidence.
Yeah, of course. So I actually have a call set up right after this hit with the actual whistleblower that you were talking to yesterday to get some more information. And then I had a meeting this morning with the task force and our attorneys at task force. Look, it's very possible. First of all, we don't know who it is yet. And obviously we want to run down the sources. But if this is happening, first of all, it's obstructing Congress in our investigation. So you're talking about obstruction of Congress. That's obviously contempt charge. And so we would be bringing that forward if we can find out who it is. But I have the utmost faith in Kash Patel and Dan Bongino to find this. But I just want to be clear about something. From the get-go, from the start of us announcing this committee, we had anticipated that with President Trump's order to declassify documents, that it would be a difficult task, right? We know that when President Trump was previously in office, he was actually blocked from releasing the remaining JFK files by the former Secretary of State. And so we know that President Trump wanted this done. And so Speaker Johnson, Chairman Comer set up the task force to aid the president's efforts. Now, to be clear, we don't hold declassification authority, but we are the action arm and the punitive action arm of the president in the event that stuff like this would happen. And so what you saw was basically, I think it was an effort to discredit the task force. Why would you not want there to be oversight into the declassification process, right? Then we find out that with everything that was happening, we weren't really getting the responses that we wanted. We have government agencies that are obviously getting ready to give us briefings this week. But I did think it was a little bit peculiar that some of the documents that should have been released immediately weren't. And so I started getting vocal about that. Obviously, there's a lot of behind the scenes stuff that people don't know about. So we have to create paper trails, et cetera. But long story short, when we saw that information coming out yesterday, unfortunately, it doesn't surprise me. Obviously, seeing what CNN was reporting coming out of the CIA is absolutely alarming. But I want people to remember that this embedded corruption has been there for generations. It's been kind of how Washington's been run, I would argue, since JFK was in office. And so there's a lot of work to do, but just remember that this is not by accident that this is all happening right now. And I would like to also let you guys know that I actually just met with the National Archives, and even they said that they're actually weeding out people at the archives that were obstructionists. And so President Trump definitely getting in, I would argue, has saved the country. We would not have known how bad it was had he not taken the executive branch. But again, it's alarming, it's disheartening, and I fully back my words that I said earlier that what the CIA is talking about right now, if people sell secrets to a foreign government, you will be charged with treason. So do not do that. Do not burn documents. You will be held accountable. We will find you. So just don't even do it.
Governor, a very stark warning that you're delivering there. Obviously invoking the Holocaust, obviously invoking, a horrible, horrible thing that took the lives of ancestors of yours and ancestors of mine is evocative. I would also think it might be controversial. People might think, how can you possibly compare what happened in Germany in World War II to what's going on here in the United States?
Well, we're talking about the death of a constitutional republic. That's what happened in Germany in 1933, 1934. And we're seeing today that you've got an administration in Washington that's ignoring court orders, literally ignoring when a judge says you can't do this. They're going ahead and doing it anyway. The question is, where does that stop? The courts don't have the ability to enforce their orders, and the president is supposed to obey them, but is not. So this is just one piece of a very long story that's developed over the last 6 weeks of the ignorance of constitutional norms and indeed disobeying the Constitution, announcing that we're going to do away with birthright citizenship. That's been established. Well, it's in the Constitution, for goodness sakes. So I really think people need to wake up to what's happening in Washington. And I felt like, based on my own experience, I led the building of a Holocaust museum. I worked with Holocaust survivors for a decade to open that museum. I know what happened day by day almost that led to the Holocaust. And I'm not suggesting that's exactly where we're going, but I know what happened in the early 30s with the death of the German democracy, and that could happen in the United States.
The intimidation, if you will, that deliver these 5 bullets by Monday at noon, or you lose your job. Again, if you want accountability, let's ask for accountability, but let's do that through the proper chain.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community. We don't know what's going on. Look at the Russian hacking. Without the intelligence community, we wouldn't have discovered it.
Do you think he has an agenda to try to dismantle parts of the intelligence community? I mean, this form of taunting hostility.
Whether you're a super liberal Democrat or a very conservative Republican, you should be against dismantling the intelligence community.
Mr. President, can you clarify, hopefully once and for all, what your expectations are with this email to federal employees? What are you going to use that information for? And do you see it as voluntary, like OPM has said, or mandatory?
Yeah, well, it's somewhat voluntary, but it's also, if you don't answer, I guess you get fired. What it really is, do people exist? We have this massive government with millions of people, and nobody knows who's working for the government, who's not. So what they're doing is they're sending out a letter to everybody, and they're saying, what were the things you did last week? Mm-hmm. I guess they ask for 5. And if people are working, it's easy. I could tell you 5 things I did last week. I could tell you 5 things I did 6 weeks ago, right? If they're there and they're working, they're able to say they did 5 things during work. A deranged person.
What do you say to people who worry that targeting an individual firm or individuals who aren't Jack Smith for his actions?
I've been targeted for 4 years, longer than that. So you don't tell me about targeting. I was the target of corrupt politicians for 4 years, and then 4 years after that. So don't talk to me about targeting. Yeah, go ahead.
Mr. President.
Give me all of them. Look.
Yeah.
See that? Trump was right about everything. It just came in. Somebody said, I said, This was sent in by a fan. I said, I think we should make some of them, right? But we were pretty much. You want one?
I'll pass.
Are you allowed to take one? Because
not.
he'll consider it. I know him well. He's sort of a stiff.
I said you were
Yeah,
right.
Brian, you're not a stiff. You're sort of a stiff guy. He'll take other things, but not a free hand.
Always say yes to the president. Always say yes to the
Would
president.
anybody like one? We're going to be now calling those shots. As you know, we won that lawsuit right there. See the Gulf of America, which is a beautiful name. Most people agree. I don't know. It's, you know, AP has been terrible. I think they're radical left. I think they're third-rate reporters. I know the specific young lady that works on the account is terrible. She's a radical left lunatic, as far as I'm concerned. They don't treat us fairly. That's number one. And number two, they had no right to do that. This is the Gulf of America. And if you look at that shoreline, look at that shoreline. Look, from Florida, well, most of it is, it's called America. And vast majority, like big numbers. So I'm just admiring it as I look at it. I'm getting teary-eyed, but I don't want you to say Trump broke down and started crying. No, how beautiful is that? Look at the shoreline. Look at that. That's America.
At the outset of your administration, sir, you committed to ending the weaponization of government, to holding those accountable who participated in the weaponization of government.
Hold it. This is a good one. Is everybody listening? Deranged Jack Smith. We're going to call it the Deranged Jack Smith signing or bill. Go ahead.
One law firm that provided pro bono legal services to the special counsel's office under Jack Smith's leadership was Covington and Burling. As a result of those actions, we're now going to be suspending and putting under review the security clearances for the attorneys and employees at that firm who worked with Jack Smith's team. And we're going to continue holding the people who were responsible for the weaponization of government, who supported it, accountable for what they did.
And you'll be doing this with other firms as time goes by, right?
We're looking at sort of the whole panoply of options.
The weaponization of our system by law firms, even pro bono work they're doing just in order to clog up government, stop government. And nobody knows about it more than me. And hopefully that'll never happen again.
So the Covington and Burlington?
Covington and Burlington.
Mr. President, may I ask you a question about Europe? So long term, do you plan to maintain the number of U.S. troops
Wait,
stationed?
I just want to savor this one, please. Who would like this pen? Hey, why don't you send it to Jack Smith? A deranged person.
Donald Trump was on fire signing these executive orders today. The best one, of course, is stripping the security clearances from the law firm tied to the Jack Smith cases. That needed to be done. But when you watch these clips, the first clip you're going to watch, he absolutely annihilates the man asking him the question. But when you watch this, remember that they compared this man to Hitler. These are real people. Isn't it nice to have real people back in office? He has a savage moment here where he's talking about the hats, the Donald Trump was right about everything hat, where he flexes his new merch here. The left is going to lose it on this. But these are real people. RFK, you follow that guy on social media? Real person. Pete Hegseth, follow that guy. Real people. It's nice to have real human beings back in office and not these robots that we had for the last 4 years. This walking skin suit of a human being. The liberal media is about to lose it over all these executive orders that he signed today. Now, this was a great meme, OnlyFans. You're going to watch Eric Swalwell panics when Nick Sortor asks him about his spy girlfriend, Fang Fang, and whether that's a bigger national security threat than Elon Musk. If you look at the post here by Nick, it says, I sat next to a drunk Eric Swalwell at dinner for 90 minutes. He was immediately compromised by a group of lobbyists he'd just met, spilling intimate details about his job and asking for help on cheating on his wife. Massive national security threat. You can read the rest of it here. He spent his time at dinner bragging about orgies on Capitol Hill, fatherless behavior. The first clip you're going to watch is of Hakeem Jeffries and Rachel Maddow, a.k.a. Mark Cuban, talking about comparing fighting Trump to the American Civil War, which is complete nonsense. Zelensky is going to be meeting with Trump this week. And here you have a clip of Cenk Uygur making his own conspiracies up about lithium, and this is going to be followed by our boy Scott Jennings, the legend, crushing the panel that he always crushes. And also, is there any gold in Fort Nox? Let's get it.
To hear from you that you understand the scale of the threat, and you have ideas about how to interrupt what feels like something that we have not experienced since the Civil War in terms of the threat to our republic.
Well, it's certainly the case that we understand the scale of the threat. That can't be doubted. The CBC, which I'm a part of, definitively understands the scale of the threat. Our communities have been under siege, as you pointed out, since before the Civil War. I'm a direct descendant of those very communities, so we understand the struggle, the history, the strength of people like John Lewis, which we're going to channel. That's my experience. That's my personal experience. That's my family's experience. And so we understand that. And as a caucus, it's definitively the case that we understand that. Listen, we launched a rapid response task force and litigation working group. It's going to be led by Joe Neguse and, of course, a brilliant constitutional lawyer, Jamie Raskin, to be able to respond to and work with our allies like Tish James and others in part of what we are responding to. Listen, Elon Musk and Donald Trump, they're flooding the zone in part to create distress, to create a sense of invincibility and inevitability.
Any feelings about Zelensky and Russia? This isn't about that. Just in sheer negotiation, it makes no sense. Okay, so, but now I've solved it because it's clear now what's happening. Because they want the mineral rights. So he's putting pressure on Zelensky because he doesn't give a damn about what kind of deal Russia and Ukraine strike and how much land one keeps or the other. Do you know what's in the mineral? We keep calling it mineral rights. Titanium and lithium. Oh, who needs lithium? Oh, right, Tesla has lithium go in its batteries. Elon wants that lithium. So the deal that our Treasury Secretary pushed across the table to Zelensky when they were one-on-one and tried to bully him into signing was, we spent $100 or $200 billion in Ukraine. There's conflicting numbers. But look, we all want peace. We all want to stop spending that money. That's legitimate. The negotiations are perfectly legitimate. The drive for peace, perfectly legitimate. He pushes across a deal for $500 billion in mineral rights. And here's the most important thing that American voters have to understand. Those minerals do not go to us, the American taxpayers, the American citizens. They go to American corporations. We are going to get $0 out of that. But Elon Musk is going to get fabulously even richer. He wants that lithium, and he doesn't care about Russia or Ukraine. So this is a robbery now. And that's why they're pressuring Zelensky instead of Putin.
Okay. So, Congressman, you referred to Elon Musk as a fascist at some point and alluded to him being a national security threat. Do you see that more of a national security threat, you sleeping with a Chinese spy, than transparency in the federal government? What are your thoughts on that? What are your thoughts on that? What's Fang Fang think of that?
What are you doing? This is ridiculous. So the Golden State Warriors, though.
I mean, what's fascistic about exposing government corruption? I mean, I know you're just at dinner now with a bunch of lobbyists. You know, they're buying you a bunch of booze, and you know that's awfully nice. I know you were talking about, you know, maybe finding somebody else because you only like to fuck people that are tens. I just heard that one too. So what do you think about that? Do you want to comment on any of it? Elon Musk is a national security threat, but you sleeping with a Chinese spy is not. Is that correct? You don't want to comment on that at all? Looks like guilty as charged.
I'm willing to give the new administration some latitude to try to enact the political will of the people of the United States, and that is for this to come to an end. The political will to continue to funding an open-ended engagement is draining rapidly. I think you would acknowledge that. And so Trump here is a new broker on the field and has a chance to do something amazing, and that is to get these two people to stop fighting, and in that case would bring some stability to the continent of Europe. And, you know, what he has to say publicly about Russia or Ukraine over the course of time, I guess I'm willing to give them some latitude if the ultimate result is this, what Pete Hegseth said initially, a sovereign and prosperous Ukraine, those were his words. The United States strikes a rare earth mineral deal with Ukraine. I would love that. And the governments in Europe decide that they do need to take a little more responsibility for their own national security. If these are the outcomes and the killing stops, they ought to give Donald Trump the Nobel Peace Prize.
What I think is interesting about this is that nobody has said this is a crazy idea to go make sure the gold is actually there. And, just think about that. I mean, I think the gold is probably there. I think the gold is almost certainly there, but nobody thinks it's a crazy idea to go check because we don't know. That's how bad the corruption has gotten in Washington, is that we can't fully trust that our gold is still in Fort Knox. I think the majority of the American people are distrustful, and we've seen that the corruption in Washington is rampant. That is what DOJ has exposed. USAID, this was this slush fund for all these left-wing and Democratic interest groups. They were funding the media, the New York Times, Politico, the BBC. 9 out of 10 publications in Ukraine were getting funded, and so on down the line it went. So we've seen, as DOJ has uncovered more and more about where our money is actually being spent, we've seen this enormous expose of corruption. And I think that people are actually so skeptical now of how our government is taking care of our money that I think they actually are a little bit worried about whether the gold is still in Fort Knox. Now, like I said, I think it probably is there, but we got to check.
Guys, I'm going to leave you here with Alina Habba completely destroying the mainstream fake media. This clip is gold. Hope you enjoy it. Catch you all in the next video. Peace out, everybody. Let's go.
Thank you. Can you clarify for federal workers who might be confused who to listen to, since Elon Musk's post is different from what OPM sent out?
I don't think it's, look, here's the reality of the situation. There's one person we're supposed to be listening to, that's President Trump, and what the American people mandated, which is what we're doing. People need to be accountable. You need to be able to answer the question. If you couldn't answer it yesterday, you have till today. But the reality is accountability is real. I can't not show up to work every day. I have to answer to the president. And by answering to the president, I answer to the American people. It's very simple. Would you want to pay somebody to do a job and they don't show up to work? I don't think so. I could name 5 things, 5 bullets, in about 5 minutes of me coming into the office every day. If you struggle to do that for a week, there's no excuse for that. Now, you can have an extra day to answer it, but you better be able to answer it.
What clarification can you offer workers, though, who are confused?
I'm not sure why you're confused or why it's so hard to answer what 5 things you've done in the past week.
And what do you say to departments that have told their employees you don't have to answer?
Well, I think that there's reasoning behind that. You have to understand some of these departments, obviously, we work with top secret information that perhaps you're not supposed to disclose. There's a lot of complications that I'm not going to get into, but there's no question that every single cabinet member, every single person that was put into this administration wants the American people working, wants people back to work, wants to stop the Zoom calls, and wants to stop people from double dipping and having 2 jobs when taxpayer dollars are paying for you to come to work.
Is the White House investigating any of the DOJ resistance, like hacking of the
That's a question for DOJ and DOJ.
Are White House staffers included in the ask by Elon Musk? Did you turn in 5 things to President Trump that you did?
I received an email. President Trump knows what I do every single day. So for me to answer that email is incredibly easy. Frankly, the American people see what I do every single day. So it's just such a non-issue. Think about the fact that we're having look at all of you standing here asking me why people are upset to answer to their boss, the American people, and the President of the United States, what you've done at work. What a ridiculous thing. I mean, it's as ridiculous as us having to say that boys can't play in women's sports. The fact that we are wasting American taxpayer dollars to even have to correct this is insane.
Should people that don't respond order to fire people who don't answer?
Well, firing people has been happening. It happens in every job. Is it outrageous to you that we're firing people? I mean, PPO has fired tons of people. Each department has fired tons of people. If you're not on an American First agenda, you're not here. It's very simple.
Will they be fired if they don't, just to be clear, will they be fired if they don't respond?
I think the president spoke on that. I'll refer to his statement. You will be held accountable. You will lose your job if you are not working.
Well, but OPM had said, I believe it was minutes afterwards, at least it came out afterwards, that a failure to respond is not telling to resignation. So
listen, it's like any job. We're going to ask you what you're doing. Each department is in charge. We have to look at what everybody is doing. You want to say that we're just going to go in and do something careless? No, we don't do things carelessly. But we are asking people to show us that you are working.
And what's going to happen to the messages? Will a higher up evaluate the message and see whether this person was being effective and constructive that week, or is it just that you must respond to show that you exist?
I think every department will handle it in a coordinated effort, but the mandate is real. You have to show up to work.
Will it take staff time to read them? I mean,
Of course it takes people's time to read them. We're not asking them so that we put them in a wastebasket. We're asking because we want to know.
Is there anything you could share about whether the president is making calls today ahead of this vote in the House and the budget resolution?
I don't ever. You know me better than that. I don't speak for the president ahead of him. The president will speak for himself. And lucky for everyone in America, President Trump is on the news every day answering questions whenever you guys want. I think that's something that we really have to say, look, there's transparency like we've never seen. And that can cause confusion for people. I understand that. But just know that while we are being absolutely transparent, these are intricate things that we're dealing with. And there are teams of people coordinating, working together to make sure we make this country better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Alina.